Amazing. So let's just touch quickly, because I know we want to go on to the next thing, on the maybe the issues that you had with doing, let's be fair, a fairly substantial change to, it sounds like a very old building as well.
Yeah, mid-Victorian, yeah.
To a, to beautiful flats with, big changes. So yeah, what kind of happened, and
well, take staircases out, walls out, all those things. Yeah, substantial changes. Some of those, close to next door. So party wall agreements, £33,000 spent on party wall agreements. And if your contractor, stroke architect, stroke whatever, doesn't do it very well in the first place and tries to do it on the cheap, it costs you more money. So, it cost us a bit on that. As I say, it was about £33,000 in party wall agreements. If it had been done, I'd call it properly from the start, it might have been a little bit more cost effective. But I think the biggest challenge was the fact that we just got into COVID. So the 3 or 4 biggest challenges. Number one, we've just got into COVID, and that means it's got to go to the planning committee, and the planning committee are all my age or older mostly, aren't they? Councillors, local councillors are usually my age or older. They're 60 plus, aren't they? Let's be honest. And how many of them at that time knew how to use Zoom? None of them.
So funny.
All right. So because nobody knows how to sort of use Zoom, they've got to all be trained. And it takes them 5 months to be trained how to use Zoom. God. So we've bought this place, and now we can't get our planning because COVID has hit and they don't know how to use Zoom. So we've jumped through a load of hoops in the meantime before it's gone in front of the planning committee. And when it gets in front of the planning committee, they love it. And it's the shortest item. It's still on YouTube, on their YouTube or something. You can still look at it. It's the quickest one that ever took place, I think, that day. So they loved it, but it just housed up for 5 months. That's 5 months of waiting. That's 5 months of cost. That's 5 months of finance. So that was the first issue. What about the second issue? Well, we took on our contractor. We knew at the time that our contractor's, let's say, balance sheet wasn't the strongest ever. And we discussed it with the bank, and we realised that was a risk, but we were all prepared to take the risk, including the bank, and we needed to keep an eye on it. However, obviously, COVID happened, and COVID stretches things out. COVID brings more prices, 25%, 30% price rises to some materials and whatever. And they were struggling, and they were spread too thin, and they probably under budgeted for certain items anyway. All right. And we knew that from the start. So we let them use some of our contingency because we recognised when they gave us the costing that some items were underpriced. For example, the kitchens were underpriced compared to what we wanted as a spec. So we allowed them, to use the contingent, some of the contingency for that. We also found that, I talked about this nice lady that let us in and shown us around. They like to sort of repair things in a Heath Robinson style, all right? Or if they needed a bit of extra room, let's shove that up in the roof space. Well, we can't get it in. I know, let's cut that bit of wood out.
Oh my God.
Yes, quite. Yeah, let's cut that bit of wood out. And what they did, they removed some members in the roof, and actually it weakened the ridge beam, and we couldn't tell that until we started stripping out in the sort of loft space, and found that we needed to replace the whole ridge beam and therefore take the whole roof off. And we've got, I don't know, £7,000 or £8,000, I think it was, in there for that. Plus we were going to put new dormers in. So we're going to have to strip some of it anyway. And we'd got a separate budget for that. But that was probably an extra £25,000 on the size of that roof.
Wow.
Eating up the contingency quick.
Yeah.
It was a good contingency. It was about £130,000, but we're eating it now. We are eating it. But as I said, they had a weak balance sheet. They were spreading their sales too thin. And eventually all that caught up with them, and they went into administration, receivership administration.
So how far along were you? What did you do?
Yeah. Okay. So I reckon we were at best halfway along.
Okay.
And at that stage, you either, I suppose, sink or swim, don't you? And we had, I think, 3 or 4 options. Option number 1, give up. No, come on, it's an option, isn't it? wasn't an option we were going to take, but it is an option.
Yeah.
If you give up, you're not only giving up the potential profit, you're actually giving up you're going from profit to loss. We're going to lose money. Nobody wants to take in a project rescue like that when it's not even half done. So the good news is, we knew what had been done and could see most of what had been done. So that was good as we went along. So option number one, not an option. Option number two is, well, we could get another contractor to come in. Well, we're coming out of COVID, or we're halfway through COVID or whatever, coming out of COVID. People have still got jobs to do. We'd have had to wait another 9 months to find a contractor probably that had got the capacity to do that. So that would have increased costs. We've got a development loan with a bank to sort out, as well as investors. So that's a non-option. So we're down to the last two, the only two viable options. Option number one, take on the company that has just gone bust in their phoenixed form, or do it ourselves.
Oh.
And anybody must know one of my favourite phrases: "These hands don't do hard work." All right, and that's definitely true. I wouldn't know how to do anything really. I could recognise things if they're not being done well, but I can't do them myself. So it's a do as I say, not as I do sort of mentality for me. So it was a case of if we take it on ourselves versus take on the old company, but the old company had no credit or hadn't got credit lines. So how is it going to be? We were going to be able to do that. It was just not feasible, really. So our only feasible option was to do it ourselves.
Wow. And
to do it ourselves, that means we've got to find a team pretty quick. But what do we know? Those people that were doing it before now haven't got a job. So we recruited the site manager, and he helped us pull together a team because we couldn't find enough people locally in Whitby. So we're still bussing them in to do the job. And he became our site manager for us rather than the contractor. And it took us a little bit longer to do it because we haven't got as much resource and whatever, as in people. But we managed to sort of pull it out the bag with the help of local contractors, local suppliers. But they're been left high and dry by the contractor. We'd paid the contractor 100% up to date, and they were left owing £150,000 on our job, which didn't go down too well with some of the locals.
No.
So what did we have to do? We had to go and talk to the local suppliers, because they were our lifeblood, and they're the lifeblood of the community as it's going to spiral out of control. So we did make good about £30,000 worth of local supplies. It might be a bit more than that, actually, £35,000 worth. The main building supplier, he said, well, if you're going to make up that, that's fine. I signed a guarantee. He gave us £30,000 worth of monthly credit. He said, yes, I'll wait till the end to get that money, because I needed people to help us to get the job done. So rather than bury our head in the sand, it was a case of, grasp the nettle and take it on. And what I did, I used the engine shed to invite the contractor, the suppliers round, so they could see what we'd already got and what we'd already done. Again, a bit like we did with the lady, and we negotiated there, so they could see what we were about. So it's not our problem. It's our problem, but it's not our fault, was the sort of message. We take responsibility for what's got to be done, but we need to move forward together to make it work.
Oh my God.
So a contractor going bust. Now, sometimes the banks aren't that forgiving, are they? Right?
No
they aren't
way.
that forgiving. But they saw us grasp the nettle straight away, and they gave us an extra £100,000. Our costs went up by about 250, because obviously prices were rising billio during that time. So I think it went up between 250, £300,000 ish, just on the cost. Then you've got the knock-on of finance costs, and then not just because of you're borrowing more, but you're borrowing for longer. And that went up by about 50% almost, our borrowing costs during that time. So there were some trials and tribulations along the way, but we got through.
And
we got through.
So originally you had a full head of hair, you were kind of, you know, all of those kind of things. And literally in a couple of months, it had all gone. So, you know, very stressful. But I suppose, like you said, you know, you've got one choice: you can give up, or like a lot of these things, you just got to have that faith that you'll find a solution and just keep going with it. So
yeah, to be honest, the two solutions, I did say we could use the old company. Actually, that wasn't a real option. The option was give up or get a grip.
Yeah.
And it was the get a grip option. Now, a few things to think about of why it would really encourage us to do it. And we weren't motivated by fear during that time. We were actually motivated, I wouldn't say greed, but the motivation to finish and get the profit. Because of that particular project, both myself, I talk about getting paid before, during, and after a project, Emma. Yeah. And before is when you can earn a sourcing fee for finding your own project. During, you can earn a management fee for managing your own project. And after, you get the lump sum residual profit. And for this one, both myself and Peter earned for 2 years £4,000 a month each.
Wow.
Kept the wolf from the door, didn't it, during that time, I say. Yeah. So, to get on and do it, you want to keep making sure that you press on so you can keep being paid that as a management fee. And secondly, if you've got £1 million dangling at the end, does help as a bit of a motivator.
Yeah, absolutely.
To get there,
absolutely.
You know?